Welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast. This is episode 9, and this is where we talk about the Pokemon TCG. It's brought to you by myself, Uncommon Fossil, and my partner, 10 Types. 10 Types, how has your week been in terms of Pokemon?
It's been pretty good. Obviously, Scarlet and Violet's like just around the corner, so I'm really
Yep.
excited for that. And then the new set after that actually had a bunch of cards revealed, so I've been looking at those as well. We finally got your boy Minecraft Donkey Kong, a card for that coming out, so I'm excited for that. It's not that good, but it's fun. And then, yeah, I've been like sledging through live like with the challenges. It's so annoying that like we'll get to that, but it's
Mhm.
annoying to just have to grind for daily challenges. But I'd like to not have to migrate to live
That's
when
right,
Scarlet.
Scarlet and Violet. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I don't have enough stuff, I'll probably have to migrate.
Oh, right. Yeah. If you have enough, if you earn enough credits and crystals in game, you can get the new cards without migrating. Otherwise, you'll have to migrate to have access to stuff. That is true. The week's been pretty good for me. I find it amusing the way you and other people, Scarlet and Violet's not out yet, but everyone's now talking about the set after Scarlet and Violet. But anyway, I just kind of, at this point, I'm still working on the Crown Zenith because those are the cards we actually have. So I'll consider Scarlet and Violet when it comes. But it's been pretty good. You know, besides the new cards, it means rotation. So I've kind of been focusing on some of the old decks that I've enjoyed that I won't get to play again. So that's where I'm at. Playing the things I can now while I can. You know, playing last hurrah with Eternatus, playing Vikavolt just to make, you know, decks. These are decks that make everybody's life miserable, right? Wheezing and Vikavolt to lock them down. But it's been all right with that, and been busy with our podcast. It's actually now is a podcast. It's not up on all the apps or platforms yet, but it's getting there. It's up in at least half of them at this point, and probably within the next week it will be available broadly. At least I hope so. So some progress there, which I'm glad to report.
Yeah, it's on Spotify and is it iTunes? Is that what it is?
Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, um, Amazon's got a thing, and I think Stitcher and maybe iHeartRadio actually as I'm working through stuff. There's still another three or four. There's just a lot of them. You have to create an account like almost every time, so it's a bit annoying. But you know, hopefully it's worth it. We'll see how if this podcast as a podcast is something that people want to listen to.
Yeah, and I think it's called Reasonably Effective, the Pokemon TCG podcast. Is that what it's called, or is it called something else?
Um, well, that's a good question. I if you type in reasonably effective TCG, I know then you should get it.
Maybe,
I think it's
maybe.
just called reasonably effective, but then obviously there's not a lot of listens yet, so it might not pop up in your list.
Yeah, but hopefully you can find that. Check it out. It should be. Hopefully it's a better experience. I don't know how many of you were looking forward to that, but I think it's something that you could enjoy. And share it with other people, of course, if you want to.
Yeah,
Um,
and if you find it, you know, let us know if you like it as a podcast, and if you're having trouble finding it, let us know too. And if you specify what it is you're trying to find it in, that can help us make sure it gets out there.
y-
But I think that's enough about us, right? And we move into our topics, which we're going to start off. We're going to start with live. We're going to talk about Regieleki VMAX and then talk about the concept of sideboarding. So something which is not a part of Pokemon now, but want to just give that some thoughts. But want to talk about live. That's a regular topic now because that's a big deal. And I think you seem to want to talk about the problems or glitches that live is happening now right now. Is that kind of correct?
I mean, it's the only thing to talk about, right? There are. I was mentioning that like the challenges, so they're annoying to grind through. A big
Mm,
issue. I mean, there are a bunch of. They're not that bad in general. I think the mentality is certainly fine.
mm,
But I think that one of the big issues is that one of them, the Pokemon V challenge, just doesn't work. Right? You're supposed to like put two Pokemon
yeah.
V into play or something.
Right.
Um,
Two or three or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and it just doesn't work, right? That should be a pretty easy challenge to do, but
Hmm.
it doesn't work, and that means there are some more annoying challenges, which is fair. I think that there are challenges that take more work to do, versus some are just like play one item card, obviously very easy to do. Some are
Hmm.
like play three tools or play like three stadiums, which are more difficult
Right.
to do, especially in an average deck. And normally then you
Hmm.
have the option to reroll, so you could reroll them, but now you can't reroll anything except for the Pokemon V quest because you have a chance of hitting that one, and then you just can't do your challenge for the day, which is just brutal, as it's the main way of um,
Right.
progressing through Pokemon.
Yeah. Now, I mean, in general, the challenges I think are better in live than PTCGO because those were all type based, and therefore most of the time you couldn't play the deck you wanted to play to make progress in your challenges. Here, they're more flexible, which I think is good. Obviously, one challenge not working is a problem. I believe it came in that glitch started when they put EXs into the code when they did that update. So it probably EXs and V being rule box Pokemon. It seems like it caused trouble there. Hopefully, that's not a sign of things to come. Of course.
Yeah. Oh, just wondering, have you tested that challenge then with Mimikyu EX, or have you not done that?
I have not, no. So that's a thought. I could do that if I get that challenge. Maybe I will try out just getting a Mimikyu into play and see if it makes progress there. But I haven't.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's another issue that in one of my videos came up. Not for the audience, but for me, and it's the issue of I think it's metal Pokemon only. But
Hmm.
when you switch a metal Pokemon into the active, or whenever it plays the metal, like animation, it plays a
Yeah.
sound, which is normal, but it plays a sound even if you have sound turned off. So I have sound turned off in the game. Generally, I have sound turned off on like whatever device I'm using as well. But in this,
Hmm.
in when I'm recording, I don't. The audience can't hear it, but I could hear it, and I just got like jump
Yeah.
scared out of nowhere. I like gusted up the Genesect. I kind of knew that it might be coming, but it was certainly very surprising as well. So that's a big issue. There's actually a similar issue in Marvel Snap that was super annoying. Um, it wasn't it wasn't as surprising because it just turned all your sound back on when you did certain things. But yeah, I don't know why that's happening. That's annoying as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, I mean, I when I'm playing normally, I'm playing some music through my Bluetooth speaker, and I have in-game sound off all the time in the game. But usually, on my computer system, the I do have volume turned on there on my playing, but with no sound from the computer. And then all of a sudden, a metal Pokemon gets played, and it's not just soft either. It's like full volume. It just blares out at me when a metal Pokemon gets played. So it's not pleasant. Now, fortunately, it doesn't actually impact gameplay. Most of the glitches, I think, don't stop the game from working, although some do. But they're still annoying.
Yeah, what are the glitches? I'm not sure if I've encountered many gameplay glitches. Um,
Hmm.
like what glitches have you encountered? Because you've been playing obviously more live.
Right. I mean, one was in a video I was watching from someone, and they were playing Rotom V, and they wanted to get some cards and some tools in the discards. If you're familiar with how that Pokemon works, and they had Ultra Ball, but it wouldn't let them play the Ultra Ball, which obviously would have discarded tools. And then they said, okay, that's okay. I haven't used my V Star Power yet, and Rotom V's V Star Power discards
You mean
your, I believe,
Rotom V stars, right?
Rotom yeah, Rotom
Yeah.
V Star, sorry, ability, which discards cards from your hand, and it wouldn't, and it should have been able to work, and that didn't work either. So that obviously impacted the gameplay. Another thing I've had is sometimes you see when it shows a card, it's a white, it's blank, it's just a white rectangle. It happens on mulligans sometimes. I've noticed mostly. I've now started it. So therefore, if your opponent mulligans, you don't know all the cards that were in their hand, right? Which would be nice information to have. So that hurts you some. And then also I played trekking shoes where it shows you the card and then decide you want to keep it or not. And it sometimes now will show me just a white rectangle. Here's the card. Do you want it or not? And that obviously is not a good thing.
Yeah, I think I've seen that with your opponent plays some Pokemon search card and then just showed a card and I didn't know what it was. So yeah, that's pretty problematic. I've seen it pretty consistently happens during the victory animations, like where it shows the cards at the end of the game.
Okay.
Um, I haven't had it happen too much, but I think it happens more with alternate arts as well. I think.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm not sure if that's true,
Hmm.
but I think that might be true.
Okay.
Just because I don't know, I play Super Smash Bros. And there's an issue where if you use like a different costume, which is like an alternate art, it just takes forever to load and it just doesn't appear. I think it's something
Mhm.
similar going on, which just doesn't. It could just be like the cards later in the database, and so it just like takes longer to get it. Um, but yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah. I mean, it could be some bad programming. Could be the issue that the memory isn't getting released properly or something in the game. It could be something like that. So hopefully that's not the issue because things like that get better until they're fixed. So, I mean, get worse until they're fixed. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, but obviously, and those are the main glitches right now that I'm experiencing that actually impact gameplay. I mean, there are still a decent number of games where you wait, you log into the game, and it says your opponent's trying to load, and then eventually, after like a minute, it says you won, right? And that's
Yeah.
not good, but you win. Occasionally, you still do. I still get games that freeze up, and I have to concede and take a loss too. So that's not good either.
Yeah, and I think also I don't know if it has crossplay with mobile, but like if
Hmm.
you're being paired against mobile players, that's not really great because then you're gonna be well, Pokemon doesn't really work for mobile, right? It's just too slow of a game. Um,
Hmm.
so the people are just gonna quit, and that's not really good. I mean, they're not always gonna quit, but they're often not gonna play a 10, 15 minute game because they're probably just like sitting
Hmm.
on the toilet or like on like I don't know at a stoplight or something. But so they only have like a minute to do it.
Yeah.
So then then they like quit after a minute, and so it's just kind of annoying. Um, yeah, and also I don't know. Obviously I'm just not a big fan of live. I'm on like PTCGL right now, so yeah. Also the sunglasses glitch, right?
Yeah, and I think that might have been a glitch from the very beginning. And now, obviously, it's not a gameplay one, but it's been there a long time, and they just don't seem to care about it, which that's that's not great.
Yeah, and the glitch is where if you have like sunglasses on your avatar,
Hmm.
the after I don't know exactly when, but it'll just default back to the original like sunglasses for whatever reason. Yeah, that's pretty much it, and it's kind of annoying. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there are some non-playing glitches, which again, it's a beta, so you can accept some of those, and that's not great that this is a beta, but you're gonna have to play it in like a week and a half if you want to get the new cards. So it's not really a beta at that point, I would say. So it better work well. And Pokemon, if the game doesn't work, Pokemon's gonna get a lot of heat, so they need to be prepared for that. But we can talk about that in a minute. But
no,
some
isn't
of the
isn't
other,
heat energy rotating?
yeah, the heat fire energy is rotating, but got Magna Basin and stuff. They got heat there too, right?
Yeah, no, fire type's gonna be pretty good in the new set. I think there's some spicy ideas. I had like one, and then I've since forgot. Oh no, yeah, so with Blissey, but that the more I think about the idea, the worse it is. But uh, yeah, I think hopefully live improves. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Like
Hmm.
there's probably like a 50% chance at least that when Scarlet and Violet drops, some point within the first like day or so, it's just gonna stop working completely. Like the
Yeah.
server just gonna crash, or you just won't be able to find any matches. Something along the lines of that because I don't because that's what like happened. It's happened before, and
Hmm.
you know that what I think it was a while. Well, no, they've had some major issues recently as well with like the Mew VMAX or Fusion Strike Energy glitch. I don't know the exact glitch.
Right. And
Um,
that was like for 2 weeks the game didn't wasn't really playable. So
yeah,
and that was yeah, I think that was in December, so not that long ago. So that that's concerning. There's a lot of little visual glitches. There's the sleeves where you can kind of unsleeve the cards,
oh yeah, I
the
was
prize
yeah.
cards. You see some random card right instead, but
Um, yeah.
if you
So
click on it a lot,
yeah, there are a few. I think that aspect of it was fixed. So you can like spam click on prize cards. I think you might need to have taken one. But then I don't know, it gets confused. And
Mhm.
then there are a few things that can happen. One of them is I don't know if you need to spam click. It's probably at some certain time, but
Yeah.
there are a few options. One, they just like disappear. Or one or two. Sometimes like some of them disappear. Like I was playing one of my games and I had one prize left, and I looked over and they were all nothing was there, so I was kind of confused.
Hmm.
But and then or sometimes like one of them discards are like half a prize card disappears, which is really weird. Also they can get flipped over, but
Hmm.
technically, but they are not rendered. They don't show what the prize cards are. You don't see them. You just see something. As you said, it's like a random card. It's not actually a random card. It's whatever card you've like most recently highlighted. It's probably whatever card's stored in this memory.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm assuming is that the card isn't actually stored within those like prize cards being displayed over there. It's just
Hmm.
something. Oh, and then another thing, which I don't know if it's exactly a glitch, but it's kind of annoying, is with Hisuian Heavy Ball. It doesn't go back to where the prize cards were, which is understandable. But then you're supposed to
Hmm.
take them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right?
Yeah.
But then it goes back to the 1, 2, 3, 4. If say you've taken 2 prizes already, so then you need to take prizes 1 and 2 again, which I just find kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, there's some odd. Yeah, it's a little odd like that. I mean, there's things. It doesn't highlight It's supposed to highlight the abilities you can use. It doesn't do that correctly all the time. So, again, if you have to, as long as you pay attention to it yourself, you have to mentally track it. But since they're supposedly doing that automatically in game, they need to fix that. It highlights cards to play also that you can't play. I even get cards to play highlighted sometimes during my opponent's turn, and I obviously can't play any cards then. So
Yeah, I've
I'll
had.
sit there like quick balls highlighted or like a poke into my hand to play. It's like don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think I've had cards in my opponent's hand or in the prize cards highlighted as well to play.
Yeah.
So, or even in the deck or discard pile. It was pretty common in the discard pile. Every once in a while, you'd see it like in the deck. I think it's been mostly fixed, but it's not been entirely fixed. So I hope they know what they're doing at the very least.
Right. Like I said, those are things okay in a beta. It's not okay once you have to use live for the new set, and they're going to look, most of the players using live are not competitive players, right? Most people will just play online, and they're going to be unhappy because they want the new cards. But then obviously they're forcing any competitive IRL players that want to prep for events to use live, and if it doesn't work for them, they have a loud voice. They're really going to scream about
Yeah, they
stuff.
definitely are very loud. Um, and I don't know. They're actually not that loud, but um, I don't know. I think they'll definitely complain. I mean, complaining is always fun, so
It
um,
is. Now,
I'll always take the drama for the content, right?
exactly. So you sell out. You're
Mm.
not shy about it. Now, I just will want to say though, there are people because I look in in, in the forums too, and people complain about glitches and errors that aren't glitches and errors too a lot. So just be aware before you complain. Make sure it really is a glitch. Like people with migrating, they complain my deck list didn't migrate. What happened? My friend's list didn't migrate. What happened? But Pokemon tells you up front these things aren't going to. They're not going to migrate. And like I can't all my expanded cards, I can't see them. Well, they're there. You have to like root around to get it. Pokemon doesn't make that easy.
Yeah, I think
Which
there are glitches with that. Though you said like the ace specs are under Pokemon or something.
yes, you can. Right, the A specs are there, and you can craft them for cheap. Which I was pleased to find out. So you don't need to spend like 100 packs to get your computer search. It's cheap to craft, but to find it, it's listed under Pokemon, not trainers where it should be. But
Yeah. Oh, and then another issue. This is not necessarily a glitch.
mhm.
It probably isn't a glitch, but it's definitely a problem. Is the fact that you can't get Tropical Beach and much more importantly Champions Festival. And while
Mhm.
some people might think it's not actually a good card, there's actually a deck. The Mewtwo control deck actually might want that card in it, and you're never gonna play it because you in live unless you've migrated with that card or you somehow have that code to redeem, which is like absurdly expensive. And
Yeah.
there are only a very limited number of codes out there. You're just not going to be able to use it at all. You can't craft it, which is problematic because just having a card in the game that most people can't get, but some people can get, is just going to cause problems. So, they
Yeah.
need to fix that. Or there are a number of ways to fix it, but they need to do something. I mean, they need to do something.
If it's a viable card, some to some extent maybe it's Pokemon's design too. They maybe it just shouldn't be allowed in events. But
Yeah, and
obviously,
they should be like not part of the format.
right. It should just be a special card that you can play informally. I mean, obviously, Trockable Beach you can't get. Now, the answer to the new card though is just qualify for Worlds. So anybody can get it. You just got to just go
Yeah,
for it, right?
spend like like life
Spend
savings and like
yeah,
go
yeah.
go
All
very
right.
far.
Yeah, obviously, it's not really reliable. So, um, anyway, is that enough live discussion for you? You feel ill enough already?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So we're gonna be talking about our reasonably effective card or deck of the day. This time we're
Yep.
talking about Regieleki VMAX, a bit of an interesting one here.
Hmm.
Came out in Silver Tempest. It also has an interesting V, but the VMAX has its ability Transistor. That says your basic lightning Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. This is before weakness, and you can stack this. So if you have 4
Hmm.
Regieleki VMAX on the bench, you're doing 120 more, which is obviously pretty insane. Then it's attack here for Lightning Colorless. Colorless is 220, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can attack, which isn't bad by any means. It's not great, and it
Hmm.
isn't boosted by other Regieleki VMAXs either, so
Right.
that's important.
Now
And it
it
also
does
has
have
free retreat. Yeah.
right, it has free retreat. So the fact that you can't attack as long as you can power up another one, then not attacking's okay.
Yeah. It's not, but it's not really an amazing attacker.
No.
I think in decks that are playing Regieleki VMAX, you're probably playing it for its ability. In which
Yes.
case, like a Pokemon like Raikou V just pretty much directly outclasses its attack.
Right. I mean, yeah. And I'll just mention the V, which the V is useful um, for its attack. And if you have the V in play with some V maxes, then the V does get boosted. There's the switching bolt for 30, and you switch with a bench, which isn't really great.
It's all right. You'll use it sometimes.
There are times you use it, but that's more that because you can't do anything else, I would say.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But lightning wall, which when I've played with, I need to think about this more because there are probably more situations where it's useful. For 3 energy, it does 100 damage, which isn't great, but then it takes 100 less damage the next turn. So that it's got a place with things. And then if you have some VMAXs on the bench, you're getting 130, 160. So
Yeah, and that's honestly an insane amount of HP. Like 200 is on the lower end, I think, for Pokemon V. Not horrible, but not great.
yeah.
Um, but then with this, it's essentially 300, which is insane. Like
Hmm.
that's bigger than Wailord V. That's like that's the same HP as a Blissey with a cape, which is almost impossible to one shot. Obviously, there are ways of one shotting this.
Yeah.
One of the more notable ones is Duraludon VMAX because it hits through effects, but
Yeah.
I feel like Regieleki V's attack it reduces more damage than Gudra V Star, which is like reduces 80, right?
Right.
Like
So
reducing 100 is very very good.
right. I mean, Gudra V Star obviously has more HP as a
Mm.
V Star, and its attack does a lot more. But there's a
Yeah,
place for Regieleki, and you can attack with this and then evolve the next turn too, and do 220, which might, if you hit once, they can't retreat. You can finish them off. But like you said, it pairs with other cards right now. Right, Raikou, which is a very nice partner, which does 20 plus 20 per bench Pokemon from each player. That gets up there quickly. And then Vikavolt is probably a big one that's paired with now too. A way to paralyzing bolt, which does 50 damage, which isn't a lot, but then your opponent can't play any item cards. So a really annoying effect of the ability to your opponent.
yeah.
And it's a way to get 50 to become what 80 or 110, so you can then one shot those lost zone Pokemon that the
Well,
opponents
like
use.
Cramorant, but Cramorant you hit Cramorant for weakness.
That's true. And you
Um,
but, well, you need one to get comfier anyway, right?
Yeah, if
And,
you have
and
one,
Cramorant,
you
you
can
need one.
if you have one, you can one shot Cramorant,
Yeah.
Comfey, Sableye. So yeah, it's quite good. One thing to note is actually comparing Regieleki VMAX to I believe it's Zapdos from Pokemon Go. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with that card?
I Go ahead, remind me. I'm
Uh,
trying to
so its attack
remember
here is
now.
called Lightning Symbol. Your basic Lightning Pokemon's attacks, except Zapdos, for whatever
Mm,
reason,
right.
do 10 more to your opponent's active.
Yes.
And pretty much everything else doesn't matter too much. But it's like it's a baby Regieleki VMAX.
Hmm.
Is it only? But I think it was only basics.
Yeah, it's also
Yeah,
your basics. Again, I have it here. Yeah, and it does 10 more, which is obviously significantly less than 30, but it's a basic. It's easy to get down. So, and doesn't give up 3 prizes if it's knocked out. So,
yeah.
it's
So
an option.
which do you think's better? Because you played with both. Actually, I played with
I've
both
done
as well.
Yeah, I've done both. I you know I think they're both probably pretty comparable. I think the deck that I have with Zapdos is a little bit more of a toolbox deck with some other options because obviously with the Regielekis you need the basic, the V and the V
Well,
Max. So you have a
The
lot more.
Zapdos doesn't play Regieleki, right?
Correct. I
Yeah.
don't have them both together. I mean, I wish you could, but I mean that wouldn't make sense. So if you're playing like 2 or 3 Zapdos, you'd have a lot more deck space
Yeah.
with it. You kind of want the Zapdos only if you need feel you need that little bit of boost to one shot things, particularly Pokemon that are weak to lightning, probably.
Well, I think it's very good in Vikavolt in any deck that actually has a very low damage output because
Hmm.
if you're attacking, say, 10, 20 turns in a game versus just attacking like
Yeah.
a few turns in a game, you're getting way more usage out of Zapdos than if you're just using a few attacks because
Hmm.
um like if you're hitting 50, going from 50 to 80 or 50 to 60, that's like really big versus like 220 to 230 like doesn't really matter at all. So I feel
Yeah.
like both are certainly good with the Vikavolt. Um, they're different styles of cards. Obviously, I personally like Regieleki VMAX more because it's very like it provides a lot of value and it's not that hard to set up either, and it's also not that
Yeah.
vulnerable. It's awkward to KO, and although it's a support Pokemon, if they just gust it up, you can retreat it for free. So I think that's really nice.
Right.
Um, yeah, and its weakness isn't a big deal because I mean it kind of is, but if they're playing fighting, you're probably losing anyway. So yeah, I
Right.
really like I like Regieleki VMAX and the V. I like the utility of the V.
Yeah, I mean, with the Regieleki VMAX, unless it's a fighting Pokemon, you're probably not getting one shot. You have free retreat, so your opponent has to boss it and then boss it again, which they can't do that all the time. So it's a solid include for sure. It's not, it's a solid Pokemon, right? And right now, like I said, with Vikavolt is a very solid. It's a solid option for a deck.
Yeah, I think it's good definitely.
Hmm.
I
And then
I think Vikavolt Regieleki is probably it's one of my favorite decks right now to be honest. In PTCG I don't have it in live, but it like
yeah.
works well. It's a fun deck to play as well. It has like a bit of utility, also a bunch of power, so it's interesting. Um,
Hmm.
I do think the potential for Regieleki V to be very good. I think it can be very good because of its like just tankiness. I don't really know if too many people have experimented with that, but you
Hmm.
can just lean. There are so many tanking like cards. There's like Acuity, there's Radiant Gardevoir, there's V Guard Energy, there's Full Face Shield. Was it full
Oh,
full face
for
guard, full face guard.
Pokemon without abilities,
Yeah, for full face
take
guards.
less.
So you can just have
Yeah.
like massive amounts of HP and tankiness with that. Or you could do Cape of Toughness, or I believe there's a new tool card coming in our June set that's like Cape of Toughness. So yeah, I definitely think
Hmm.
Reggie. I just like the whole line.
Yeah, and since we've been talking about, it, kind of been messing around with a little bit. Obviously, you could I've tried put Eternatus, Radiant Eternatus in your deck as a way to, especially if you go first, you can get your energy, get your deck set up, and then get two VMAXs right on the bench to boost that damage right away. I don't know if it's the best play, but it's an option. I like Rotom V. It's a fun card to play with. Could Rotom V, could I stick a couple Regieleki VMAX in a Rotom V deck? I'm not sure of the deck space, but it would help get the numbers up to where they want to be more consistently.
I feel like it doesn't really help much because it's helping on say like 2 or 3 turns, but versus it's
Hmm.
helping less than a tool card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more space. Obviously, it's a bit different in the way it works, but because you're only attacking like 3 times in a game, probably with Rotom, right?
Yeah, you should be. Your goal is you're knocking out multi prizes every time.
Yeah, so I feel like it's not really worth it in that deck, and it doesn't
Mhm.
add anything else other than more damage. I mean, I guess it. I don't know. Not really. So
Yeah. So I mean, in terms right. So right now, Volt's obviously one of the best things to pair with. Once rotation comes, Raikou V is still an option, but there's some other options with the new cards coming out too. Correct?
yeah, I think there's really only one, right? The what's it?
Uh,
Miraidon
so
EX.
Miraidon EX, which is 220 HP. What it's it lets you put two lightning Pokemon on the bench. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Well, that's its ability. Um, which is nice. And it does 220 damage for 3 energy, but it can't attack the next turn. I don't remember the reach. I don't. It's got a retreat cost of maybe one. I think.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't believe it's a free retreater.
No, I think it's a retreat cost to 1. Um, so obviously it's very similar to like Zacian V.
Hmm.
And they're clearly modeling it after that as well. They like completely
Right.
ran out of ideas. They're like, we have the new legendaries, so we'll just make it the same thing.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be good, I think. There's a card electricity generator. Do you have that like in front of you or not?
Yeah, I wrote it down. What it said. What it does here. I don't have the graphic, but look at the top five cards and attach up to two energies to your bench lightning Pokemon.
Okay, yeah. So obviously, like it's like Max Elixir, or yeah, Max Elixir. So I think it's good. I think the likelihood of hitting. So you have 12 energy in a deck. The likelihood of hitting one is like you have like a 2/3 chance of hitting that, and then
Hmm.
likelihood of hitting two is like 25%. So um, you're essentially never going to hit two unless you can guarantee it. Which there are
Hmm.
a few ways of doing, notably swap cups and expedition uniform. I think those are the
Hmm.
main ones, but they're pretty like garbage. But um, they're options.
Yeah.
You could use energy recycler to increase your odds though, which is during the late game. But I think it's an interesting card. And then it will help power up Miraidon EX. And then you
Hmm.
can also use like Raihan. You could use Flaffy, but I don't think Flaffy is going to be good enough. Its payoff isn't high enough. I just don't think it's quite good enough.
Yeah, Flaffy is very sketchy in terms of it's just how often it works, I find. I mean, and right, the attack I don't believe is all lightning, so you could use Melanie, put some water in the deck too. Although
Well,
then you
no,
hit
you can't.
make your electricity generator less.
No, you
Oh no,
can't.
it's not. That's right. It's
Yeah,
not a V. Right? Melanie's only for Vs, right? Not rule boxes.
yeah. Melanie's for Pokemon V's, so you can't do
That's
that
right.
there.
So yeah. I
Um,
mean, the the other Pokemon which get some considerations. There's Magnezone EX at stage 2, which makes it tough, but it's 330 HP. It's got two attacks, which the first attack is for one lightning, does 50 damage per energy on all your opponent's Pokemon. So
yeah, but
that's a nice
Magner's
count.
damage isn't boosted by Regieleki.
Oh, that's correct. You're right. You're right. That's just a lightning one. You're
Yeah,
right. It's not a basic. I keep forgetting that. So,
you could
um,
play them, but they don't really have a lot of synergy.
yeah, if you, yeah, you could play it like as an alternate, as a tech, I guess.
Mhm.
But
And
right,
also
Miraidon is
Ampharos
the
EX,
basic.
I think. Ampharos EX could be okay, but
Hmm.
I feel like I think Miraidon EX with Regieleki VMAX is very good because it allows you to set up your Regieleki Vs relatively easily. There's a good chance you're not attacking the first turn of the game either.
Yeah.
As in pretty much you're not going to be attacking the first turn. So you're probably attacking the second turn, and then that's when you have all your VMAXs set up, and it sets the Miraidon sets up the Vs. So I think it's going to
Hmm.
work pretty well. Um, It'd be really nice if there's a lightning draw engine. I don't believe there is, right? Nothing that like no onboard lightning draw engine.
I don't think there is. No.
The best thing there
Uh,
is Luxray.
your favorite, yes. Although now you have too many basic Pokemon in your deck, so Luxray's not going to be so effective, right?
Yeah, probably not. You could use I guess Raikou V, but that's not that good.
Yeah, because it's got its ability to draw one. You mean?
Yeah, and
And
something
you
like
can
Rotom.
attack with it.
Yeah, Rotom V is not bad either.
Yeah, I mean now that it's not bad, but you really need to lean into the tools with
Well,
that. So I'm
Rotom
not.
V is an engine piece. If you're just playing
Oh, is a
like a Miraidon, I think one Rotom V is valid, so you can grab that
okay.
turn one and then draw some extra cards.
Okay. Y- Yeah, you could do that.
So it draws
Um,
three and ends your turn.
yeah, so that's only like turn one. After that, you don't want to use it. So, but it has some value. Electrode is rotating, right? That knocks itself out and accelerates energy.
Yeah, that's rotating.
So, okay. So I just wanted to make sure. I thought because that obviously could be useful
Yeah,
to get those
Flappy
in.
is probably better though. Like, I think.
I guess.
I know you don't like Flappy, but
I
Electrode's
just
not great.
well, usually you don't want to knock yourself out, right?
Mhm.
But it's more reliable. That's I just find Flaffy either it doesn't set up or it just gets knocked out, right? And then if you're relying on Flat, you don't. I don't. If you rely on Flaffies, they're just too vulnerable. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think we're being a bit too harsh on Flaffy. It's like like it's known for underperforming, but it's not actually that bad. Um,
Hmm.
the cards it's been paired with just aren't great. Um, with the Raichu, it's kind of Raichu V has been kind of valuable, I'd say. It
Hmm.
doesn't see a ton of play, but it's all right. But then also, I think Raichu V is a Pokemon that some people might be thinking of. I don't think Raichu V is a good partner because I think any deck with a lot going on doesn't have room for Regieleki VMAX as a damage buff.
Um, that's true. I mean, you're taking up multiple deck spaces for the cards, and you're going to probably want some extra Pokemon search to get them into play. Um, so the deck has to be pretty streamlined on its own, probably, to make it work.
Yeah, I think Raikou V, Miraidon EX, and Regieleki VMAX are going to be a very solid deck, though. I think that's probably the second best, no, third best deck to come out of Scarlet and Violet. They're a solid chunk of decent decks. Nothing amazingly good, but Gardevoir is good. Miraidon's good, and Squirtle's good.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I'm just looking at Raichu here, which you can attack turn one too to accelerate an energy. So if you could put one in a deck and have a decent chance of using its attack turn one, you could have value playing one in a deck just to set up.
One of what?
A Raichu V.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Fast charge where you accelerate a lightning energy to this
Um,
Pokemon.
Yeah. I think a Rotom V is probably better, though. Drawing cards, like, synergizes more with your general plan. I think Raichu V doesn't, unless you're playing Flaffy, in which case, obviously, you're playing Raichu V anyway, because it's just good.
Right, and once you have Flaffies and stuff, then you can't have Regieleki VMAX probably, because your bench won't allow for that probably.
Yeah, so I think Rotom V, though, is a very valid and powerful tech in this style of deck. But it could also be that if you're going first, you're in such an advantageous spot anyway that it doesn't really matter.
Right. I mean, right now Lightning's a good type to be right with Lugia being Lightning weak.
And
Obviously,
Palkia.
Right, Palkia's doesn't see a lot of play now, but it's still very good.
I mean, it's seeing a solid chunk of play.
Yeah, and I won't be surprised if it makes another, it rises in popular at some point because it is quite good.
Yeah, and then you do hit Cramorant as well, which is kind of interesting. Obviously very low HP there, but there are times when, like, if you have a Regieleki V and then a Regieleki VMAX on the bench, you can use the first stack on the V to one-shot a Cramorant, which is kind of funny.
Right, and then you switch into whatever you want to wall them off. So
Yeah.
it's not a bad notion. So yeah, so Regieleki VMAX, an interesting card worth considering, both now and post rotation as stuff comes out. I think we covered that pretty well to your satisfaction.
Yeah. I think Lightning's one of my favorite types as well. So I hope it's good and interesting as well. I hope it's not just super streamlined and like straightforward. I hope it's some interesting toolbox. Honestly, Regieleki VMAX is can lead to somewhat boring decks if you just want to set up your VMAXs and then do lots of damage, but they're still kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean Lightning's kind of one of those in between types. It's not a super strong type, but it's also not a really terrible type either. So it's viable and worth some consideration probably.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so the last topic we want to talk about is sideboards, and which is not a part of Pokemon. We're familiar with it from Magic the Gathering, I think, where you have a 60 card deck. Now Magic, it's 60 cards or more.
Yeah. Also, neither of us have played Magic with sideboards.
Correct. We play a little Magic, but not with sideboards.
Or actually, have I? I'm not sure. I might have once or twice.
So what a sideboard is typically 15 extra cards that aren't in the deck that you're starting with, but they set on, you put them down to the side, hence the term sideboard. And then in a generally like a best of 3 event, you would start with the deck list that you have, your quote starting deck list. But then after the first game, you can swap out cards from your deck with the sideboard, or you can just add cards in too, because it can be above 60 cards in Magic. So the idea is, now that you see what you're up against, you make adjustments so that you can deal with any hard counters, look to counter your opponent, things like that. Which it's a strategy item, right? Your deck plus the sideboard, but then it gets into the situation of counters and counters to the counters, and I think, is that a healthy idea, or is it would it be toxic and negative for things overall?
Yeah, and I think I think it's, and we're going to kind of assume that it's the basic idea of a sideboard would be implemented properly, where I don't know, it would just work, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we're not going to worry about card counts in decks or anything weird like that.
Right. I mean, obviously, if you're getting together with friends, you could do it. You have your 60 card deck that they have to start with. You could even require a written deck list and the 15 cards on the side to make sure you know what they're starting with and they swap out. You could even do it on an online event. It would take a certain amount of trust, but you could have people. It would get complicated, but you could do something, I guess, if you really wanted to. It's not. I'd say it's not impossible to be implemented.
Yeah, and I'm sure people have probably done sideboard events as well. Obviously, they're not. That's not the main way it's played, but I think it's an interesting concept. And it's
Hmm.
just like counters would be super um, important, right? I'd probably put a Drapion V in every sideboard because, or maybe even in each of this, maybe even
I'd
two.
I'd
Right?
probably put two. The question is then, like, now I think Mew is a bit like too strong when it came out, so I don't love the design of Mew, but that's not the point here. And therefore, I think Drapion is kind of too strong, but it was made too strong to counter something else too strong. Whether that you think that's good or not, I don't know. But Drapion counters Mew, right? I mean, that's what it does. So if everybody could put two Drapion in their deck, I'm not sure you could ever play. Could you ever play Mew? And then is that a good thing or not? That's one of the questions that I have.
Yeah, I feel like Drapion's probably the most extreme example of a counter card I've ever seen. At least for a card that sees like top level against a deck that's like one of the best meta decks. Because
Yeah.
like Mew's been all over the place since it came out. So there have been other counters like I guess the biggest counter has probably been Spiritomb from Mad Party, but the from since I've been playing, but
Yeah.
generally they don't design counters like that. And I think if they were had sideboards, they'd need to kind of design cards a little bit differently. But even something like Galarian Zapdos V to counter, say, Eternus, and let's say that Eternus saw a bit more play,
Hmm.
because right now it's probably not worth including, but then, like, that's on auto-win against Eternus all the time, and also it's not just one card, it's a few cards, probably. So, I think it gets more interesting. I think Drapion is one of the few that's just super problematic.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting though that you could like it would probably be all counters. I believe that's how it's generally used in Magic. Um,
Yeah.
obviously, right? Like if you have cards that you want in your deck, you probably play them to start with. Um, so I think it's kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have your starting 60 that you'd have to play for game one. And you're not going to design a bad deck for that 60 because you don't want to lose the first game anyway. Um, but then you can have counters, and it also might allow you to play a deck that has potentially could be countered as long as you can counter the counter, right? It does open things up a little bit, perhaps. I mean, I would if it gets implemented, the reason to do it would be that it opens up more decks and more deck ideas, right? I wouldn't want it to see something that restricts things and narrows it down to just a few viable decks. And that's the question, I think.
Well, I think it could also make just a match more interesting. Obviously, I think it's more thoughtful. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, especially the deck choices and what you're bringing to the table. Because right
Yeah.
now people just like if a list wins a tournament, people just play that list, and
Hmm.
that's not very thoughtful, right? They just run it. You don't really make any decisions, but if you need to sideboard, you make more decisions. Um, I think also. I had an idea. You were saying that you don't want a deck that just loses. I was thinking, what if you had had a
Go
deck like a
ahead.
60-card deck, and it doesn't really like do anything. It's like an engine, say like the Italian
Hmm.
engine, with
Right.
stuff. And your goal,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose the first game, but then your sideboard has like everything else, so then you can like adapt. Um, yeah,
Well, I mean, obviously, you're still going to try to win the first game, right? You're going
yeah,
to
yeah. But
add because you added what 75 cards you have in total. You're still going to build what you think is a good deck out of those to
well,
start with.
you'll have a 60-card deck with that's not doesn't
Uh,
have any attackers.
Well, but since you can swap them out, I think I'd put some attackers in, right, and just
You can
make
like
my.
hide your strategy.
Well, you could do that. You could try to be really generic. Now the problem is you've lost the first game. Now you have to, if it's best out of three,
Mhm.
you've got to win the next
Yeah,
two.
and of course they will know what you're doing for the third game, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. The more I think about
Right.
it, but
I mean, you have to have like, and if it's best two out of three, right? Then I guess it is. What cards do you hide for the third game? So it could, the mind games are there. I don't know. I don't know if that's good or if it just gets silly.
mhm. And one thing I think, so we both played a little bit of Magic. Magic is the decks are I'd say much less consistent.
Yeah.
You can't like search your deck. But with Pokemon, especially with an engine like the Italian engine, but even in any deck, you can like search out your Pokemon and stuff
Hmm.
relatively consistently. So I think you could, with 15 slots, that's enough to make a new deck. Like you can have, say, be playing not like a completely different deck, but say you are playing like the Urshifu Melanie deck, right? You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
You could
Yep.
you could swap it out with like an Ice Rider deck. You could swap out your Urshifu's, your Rapid Strike
Mhm.
cards, and then replace those all with an Ice Rider pieces. And now you're playing Ice Rider, and those will be maybe not exactly what you want, but only like a few cards off, and to the point where you can still end up with a very good deck. There's two very good decks actually.
Right. The engine using the water energy, a lot of the pieces are the same, so you could do that.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're tied to the water energy with that, so you can't go to some other type. But obviously, we do want some bounds too.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think you should be able to switch from like energies are a substantial portion of your deck. So
right.
like if you especially like 10, 12 energies, you can't switch those all out and a bunch of attackers. But I think you can have a lot of versatility in deck building then, and have some really interesting aspects.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking that the Mew idea with the Count of Drapion, if you had 15 slots, you could probably then come up with a deck that wipes out Drapion with 15 cards. I think, right?
Yeah,
Could you do that?
maybe. I was actually thinking
Maybe not.
that you were saying that Mew would be completely wiped out. So then would everyone stop playing Drapion because Drapion is like if your opponent is not playing Mew,
Yeah.
there's almost no reason to play Drapion. So would everyone cut Drapion from their sideboard, and then
hmm
Mew would be good again?
Yeah, you'll get some of those games, right? Which happen now too, with guessing the meta. But now it's expanded because you have the sideboard. You have more cards that get included in every deck in essence.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I mean, what it would do, the one thing, it would make events longer, right? Because there obviously are a lot of two at best 2 out of 3s, but now you need certain amount of time to redo the decks, right? You might need another 5 minutes between rounds, which that's okay, again. But then you also would want to expand the time, I think, to make sure that all 3 games can get played. Because right now, especially IRL events, what it's like 45, 50 minutes,
yeah,
it's
something
not
like
enough
that.
time for 3 full games to get played. Someone has to get through 3 games. At least one game has to be a quick scoop, I think. And with being able to counter one another, I would want to see 3 full games being played out most of the time. I would think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just true for Pokemon tournaments in general. I think they're, I mean, it's a bit weird. They should probably be best of one leading up to the final, like the top cut,
The top cut or
so
something.
you
Yeah.
can actually like finish all your stuff. Because like you in a best of three could be playing 2 fast games or 3 long games, and so
Yeah.
it's going to be at least twice as long. So you don't want to be waiting around half the time, and you don't want to be crunched all the time either. Um, and
hmm
so like I don't know. We can talk about problems with IRL tournaments at some other time, or just Pokemon
Right.
tournaments in general. But
Right.
certainly online tournaments have been able to adapt. IRL tournaments have not, for whatever reason. They just like doing the same thing. But
hmm
yeah, actually, if you're watching this on specifically YouTube, you could comment down below if you're interested in seeing us play with sideboards. If you'd be
Right.
willing to do that. I don't know if you'd be willing to do that, but I could find someone else to replace you if I wanted.
Yeah. No. Right. Find it. Yeah. No. I could certainly do a 60 card deck plus an extra 15 and do multiple rounds with
Yeah, on
chance.
PTCGL. Yeah.
I do have my one old account, and I can choose from a few theme decks. So,
Yeah.
um, but and then once live comes out, we'll have to see whether we can play it all for the next month or two. But that's another story.
Yeah, but is there anything else for sideboarding? I'm trying to
No, I
think.
think that covers it. I mean, let us know if you think it's an interesting idea. If you haven't, let us know your thoughts on that. So, again, it's the idea. We really grabbed it from Magic, I think. Is something they do there, and thinking, hey,
Yeah,
what if we import that to Pokemon, right?
just
Trying
like
to
the whole game, just like the whole Pokemon game.
What, you're saying that just because Magic came out first and Pokemon is 60 cards and no, it's energy, not mana. It's all
Oh
different,
yeah,
all different, and they're Pokemon, not creatures. I mean,
yeah. Even though it's developed by Creatures Inc., but whatever.
yeah, we don't want to start a lawsuit, so we better
Yeah,
cut that off there. So yeah, so I think that covers it for sideboards, and hopefully you can find us on a podcast app if that's what you want to do, and you wanna close us up.
yeah. So you can check us out, of course, on YouTube. I'm 10 Types with Uncommon Fossil, and you can also hopefully as Uncommon Fossil said, check us out on podcasting platforms. Um, I don't know if we can actually see like feedback or review other than on Spotify.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But
about
hopefully we
that.
can. And if it's something that you're interested in, we might actually do some more things other than just like the weekly podcast. About like instead of just doing a video, that's we do it instead as a podcast. It would really be the same like format, but yeah, we'd be interested in, of course, hearing any feedback. And then if you're on YouTube or whatever, or not YouTube, if you liked, left any feedback, subscribed or followed or whatever, that's really appreciated. But really, we're just excited to see you next time.
Take care.